Welcome to Vermontitude, a collaborative effort between Great Eastern Radio, the Brattleboro Reformer, and BCTV to bring you the stories behind the stories on the topics you want to learn more about. Because there's always more, so there'll always be Vermontitude. Hosted by me, Peter Fish Case. Welcome to Vermontitude. New episodes drop every Tuesday and can be found by going to Vermontitude.com, Reformer.com, Brattleboro.tv, and locally on Comcast Channel 1078. We come to you from the studios at the Innovation Box on Flat Street. I'm Peter Fish Case, and each week I cover the topics that are of concern to Windham County and the towns that reside within its borders. Joining Vermontitude today from Groundworks Collaborative, soon to be SEVCA, Josh Davis. Welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. January 1st, it's kind of a big changeover. Well, that's when you started SEVCA.
That's when I started SEVCA.
Take a little time off over the holidays.
We're about halfway through November, so another couple weeks that I'll be at Groundworks at the end of this month will be my last day, November 30th. And then take a little time over the holidays, and January 2nd, because the 1st is a holiday, so January 2nd I'll be starting at SEVCA as their next executive director.
Wow, big doings, man. It's a big step. I was surprised and I understood. I think back to my time when I served on, going way back to the Melinda Busno days when it was the Morningside Drop-In Center. When it was just the Brattleboro Drop-In Center and the Morningside Shelter. Thinking about even then having the forethought to think like, you guys serve the same population of people. Probably a collaboration would be, and I think I don't, projecting a little bit, maybe just some ego, maybe some different ways of operating that weren't conducive at the time. So hats off to you for kind of making that happen and seeing that vision wholly, checking the ego, because I think there is a little bit of ego involved. And getting that done. But that's been, when did that actually, I should know the answer.
You were part of the process. Right. You're one of the reasons that we're sitting here talking about Groundworks. I mean, seriously. That was a little over 8 years ago.
Wow. That
we merged the organization. So that was 2015. And yeah, it's, what you're doing is kind of what I've started to do, and thinking back over the 11 and a half years. What are the things that I can point to demonstrate the work that we've done and under my tenure within this organization? And the merger was a huge thing. And so when I started, Melinda died the weekend right before I started in the role as the executive director of Morningside Shelter.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long after that United Way actually pulled us together and said, do you guys want to talk about working more closely together? And so I think with leadership change came new opportunities, which is going to be a theme for Groundworks now and also for SEVCA. So this leadership change presented new opportunities, and we started working on it. And it took three solid years.
It did. It took a long time.
And, the person that we worked with at that time to help us along, Andy Robinson, was just an incredible consultant. Yeah.
Andy.
And he called us the comeback kids because we would get to certain points and then have to back away. And then we kept at it and stayed at the table. And so, it's a testament to the leadership of both organizations, board leadership, staff leadership, that we were really able to persevere. Because, I do think that there was a narrative of separation and that we were different organizations and different enough that it didn't make sense to merge. And I would argue that it's made a lot of sense to merge.
I can't even, if I go back from my time of years ago volunteering when guys like Rich McInerney ran the place, and I go back to the time where I would do some volunteer work for them, and then eventually joining the board of the Drop-In Center, and seeing like the population is the same. I always thought it made the most sense. So I can't even imagine it any other way at this point now.
Absolutely. And, you alluded to Rich Mack, and we're talking about Melinda.
Yeah.
I mean, these are folks that paved the way for Groundworks to be what it is today.
Right.
And so I have a lot of deference to the history and where we come from. We've recently learned that Rich Moore tragically passed away, but he was part of that key legacy leadership of these two organizations. And I can't tell you how many people I run into who were on the board themselves in this community, such as yourself,
right,
or whose parents were on the board. I know Chris Chapman likes to remind me that like his mom was part of the group that really helped to form Morningside. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that connection and how embedded Both of those organizations were, and now it seems that Groundworks is occupying that space. And so we've been able to take the best out of both organizations. It seems like a very beloved organization, if not sometimes controversial in terms of what we do and how we do it, and how people sometimes wish that would be different. We've seen things change since the merger in terms of the context that we're working in.
Right.
And so the merger gets glossed over, and it's like, yeah, of course it's Groundworks, but man, that was a body of work. That was pretty incredible to bring these two organizations together.
Right.
And we did have the vision that we needed a larger platform for the work that we were doing to set us up for the future. And we have the pandemic coming out the other side.
I know.
And you think about what we're working with now versus what we were working with 11 and a half years ago, and how vastly different it is.
Yeah, no, it is really different. And and hats off to you for kind of saying, I've taken this thing as far as I think I can take it, and it's time for a change. How do you come to find SEVCA to go do that? How did that happen?
It's been a little while. I'm a firm believer in leadership change is really healthy for organizations.
I agree.
There's never a good time. There's never a good time for that to happen. And so I was actually looking at that a little over a year ago. Potentially, I would ask myself this question every so often, like, am I the person to lead this organization for what's next? And I started to question that. And my family is firmly rooted in southeastern Vermont. I love it here. I think this place is just, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I have no aspirations to live anywhere else. And I want to challenge myself in terms of my career, also challenge myself in the impact that I'm making in the community that I live in. And quite frankly, there's not a ton of opportunities. And so SEVCA came open in August, and this was far enough away from what happened with Leah that I was starting to lift my head up and still having that feeling that, you know what, whether it's sooner or later, I think fresh eyes at Groundworks to carry the organization into the next chapter, we're starting to get there. And if something comes up, then I'll put my hat in the ring. And SEVCA came up. And I think there's this piece of looking at where SEVCA is and their organizational development and the skills that I bring as a leader. As I went through the process with the board and the staff there, I started to get really excited about what they need and what I bring. And then also looking at Groundworks, there's never a great time to do that. But we also have Peter Elwell that's been supporting as the deputy or the deputy director.
Yeah.
And so he's able to stay on and help to carry this process through from myself and transition to the next executive director, which will not be him.
Right.
Just to be clear.
Just to be completely clear, he is not interested.
He is not interested because he retired as town manager and he would like to have a life outside of work. And I think that that's amazing. And he's also willing to put in a pretty substantial amount of work over the next few months to help transition in this process.
Right. And what a great guy to be. I mean, how fortunate the organization is to have him, right?
How fortunate this community is to have him, and Groundworks being able to benefit from his leadership and his approach right now is just incredible. And I would also say, we've worked really hard. There's a strong team at Groundworks. The leadership team is really stable and excellent. And so again, never the perfect time for a transition. No. But when you look at the factors that are going to help Groundworks approach this transition with stability, those pieces are in place. And so we have a interim executive director who's going to really knowledgeable. We have a strong leadership team. The board is really stepped up and they're doing incredible work. And then we have a great staff in general.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's jump to SEVCA. For the folks that might not know what SEVCA does, give us your elevator pitch.
Elevator pitch. They are the anti-poverty agency for Windham and Windsor County, and they are a community action program, affectionately known as a CAP. And there are a number of CAPs, about 1,000, just over 1,000 CAPs throughout the country. There's 5 in the state of Vermont, and so SEVCA is the CAP for Windham and Windsor County. They were created in the war on poverty, and Johnson created that when he, as part of his measures to fight the war on poverty. That also started the AmeriCorps program and Head Start program. It started the CAPS. And so the CAPs receive a pretty substantial amount of money from the federal government that passes through to do anti-poverty programs throughout the 2 counties, which include weatherization. They have a big weatherization program. They have family services, that is services for folks who are experiencing homelessness, precariously housed, need some help to stay in their housing, but also crisis fuel. They run that program. They run the Head Start programs in Windsor County. They have an economic development program that they ran. They just closed the thrift stores in Springfield, or they're about to, but that was part of SEVCA's work as well.
Yeah.
So they have a broad reach, and they have a number of things that they do to help support people.
Okay. All right. And you're, so it is a little of a smoothish transition from Groundworks to SEVCA, and as far as understanding the population that you're dealing with. So that'll make it a little bit easier.
That'll make it a little bit easier. Yeah, the context that we're working in and that SEVCA is working in, I'm very familiar with. We've been partners in work that we've done around housing since almost my first day at Groundworks. So the stretch, I need to get familiar with Windsor County. I haven't spent much time there. I'm really excited to get out in Windsor County. And my base of operations will be in Westminster versus Brattleboro. And so starting to take a regional approach, I think, is something that I'm really looking forward to, thinking about southeastern Vermont, not just from a Brattleboro-centric point of view.
Yeah.
So that'll be great. And there'll be a pretty steep learning curve in terms of how the funding works. And then there's 100 employees at SEVCA.
Yeah. No, it's a big organization.
It's a big organization, huge employer in our area. So looking forward to the challenge.
There we go. Well, you've got no choice.
I got no choice. I'm all in.
Well, listen, I mean, on behalf of folks here, thank you for your leadership with Groundworks, first Morningside, then Groundworks, making that merger happen, checking egos, getting it done for all the right reasons. And man, best of luck.
Thank you.
We'll check in with you like in July after 6 months.
That's great. Thank you, Pete, for the support all through. I mean, you were there from even pre-merger days. Yep. You were on the board post-merger. So you personally and professionally also have been just a stalwart supporter of the work that we do. And so I really appreciate that. I'm thankful and grateful to be able to work in a community like Brattleboro that's just been incredibly supportive of the work that we do.
Yeah.
And so I'm pleased. I feel really good about how I'm leaving Groundworks and the work that I've done over the more than decade that I've been in this seat. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the organization does in the future, the next chapter.
Well, I can tell you that even though it's Windham and Windsor County, you're still not out of my reach. So if you need anything, you let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for jumping on.